out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation to Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Socks Top Thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes and Socks Type Thing. Available at the all-new MajorLeagueAholes.com and SocksTypeThing.com. It's a new year. Figured we need a new website. Just trying to make it way, way simpler to find our latest videos, our YouTube channel, all of our podcast platforms, social media platforms, our shop, everything else. So check that out at our two websites. It's actually one website, but you can get there both ways. If you don't like Major League A-Holes, you can get there but with SocksTypeThing.com. So we have a jam-packed episode tonight. We're also on a new podcasting platform.
We are free.
We have freedom. Yes. We tried to record last Wednesday. Was that when it was? And the entire platform's website was gone. I thought potentially they went out of business that night because they didn't get back online, and they didn't get back online until the next morning. So we're recording this on a brand new platform, which might be way better than anything we've ever recorded before. It might be a disaster. Who knows? So we'll find out. But we did some testing. We'll see how well the testing actually went for us. But
we'll see if
so we're gonna struggle through this probably, but we're gonna have some fun. It's baseball has actually fucking started. Spring training games took place over the weekend. We've got all sorts of news. Of course, the biggest breaking news we'll get into is the Cody Bellinger signing by the Cubs. Beyond that, Jerry Reinsdorf wants $1 billion from the state of Illinois. So we'll see how that plays out. He might have just earned himself another. Yes. We've got not one, but two aesthetic segments this evening. Unprecedented, as pretty much the biggest story in baseball is how shitty the new uniforms are. Just everybody hates them. We'll explore that. But beyond that, my Tigers are getting Nike City Connect uniforms this year. That will obviously be of shitty quality, but we'll see how the design actually looks. I'm more interested in the hats anyway. I'm hoping to get a new Tigers hat. Hopefully they have a cool logo, whatever they do, but we'll break that all down. I've got not one, not two, but 5 storylines I'm going to be looking at going into the season for my Tigers.
We're excited.
I'll be brief. Don't worry. It's just some basic outlines. You'll understand.
I hope you've got some gigantism, Ryan.
You've got some gigantism over there, signing Jorge Soler and Kung Fu Panda out of the blue. I didn't even know he was still around. But
I think you're going to enjoy this story if you haven't read it. It's actually kind of funny. There's a funny angle.
Yeah, I didn't read anything about it. I just saw that actually, ironically, Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming out next month. So maybe, maybe that actually coincides. Yeah, it's cross promotion.
Maybe there's going to be a Kung Fu Panda 4 patch this year to replace the now defunct
the cruise patch. Yeah, good one. We've got, of course, some more fucking A's stadium drama. John Fisher's feeling pressure from all sides now. I want to break that all down. Some big news since we last came to you a few weeks ago. And maybe some of the biggest news that kind of went under the radar is Rob Manfred is out. He's retiring. Except it's not until after the 2028 season. So we've got a while to put up with that asshole. But still, we know he's leaving eventually. So that's all good. But so I say might as well just go ahead and jump into the news. Cody fucking Bellinger finally signs with the Chicago Cubs. We knew it was coming. We've been talking about this for months. Basically, it proves Jed Hoyer right and our theory right. Why would they bid against themselves if no one else was interested in the services of Cody Bellinger? It's actually played out pretty well. I would call this a win-win-lose scenario. Where the Cubs win, they got their guy for much less than the 8 years, $200+ million scenarios that people were talking about going into the offseason.
We got that. Okay, check.
Bellinger gets a modest raise. He opted out. I didn't realize this. He had a 2-year deal with the Cubs. He had a 1 year, $17 million op. First year was 17 million. Second year he opted out of was for 25 million. So he's actually getting 30 million this year in his 3-year, $80 million contract.
Well, I hope he can
So he
afford
got
to
a
eat.
modest raise. Yeah, he got his modest raise, and he still gets to be a free agent potentially after this year, after next year, or after the final year of the contract, of course. Much like the Carlos Correa deal was a couple years ago that he signed with the
Yes.
Twins before he signed a 6-year deal, or actually before he signed a 6-year deal with you guys, or 12-year deal with you guys with your Giants, and then that got backed out on. Eventually signing a 6-year deal with the Twins, but so this is similar to that, other than it's $25 million less than what Correa got. Who's the big loser in this? I think is Scott Boras, and no one is going to shed a tear for Scott Boras, but he was the one holding out for potentially up to 8 years, and 250 million dollars is what he was proposing for Bellinger's services, which I thought was preposterous. I wanted no part of it. It was why I was so against re-signing Bellinger at all. If those were the terms, I was became much more amicable to the situation signing him if it was going to be short term. This is not as short term as I was hoping. I was hoping for another 1 year or 2-year deal, but that was going to be unrealistic.
Yeah.
3-year deal, not the end of the world. That's something they can absorb even if he's terrible, which I don't think he's going to be terrible. I don't think he's necessarily going to be as good as he was in the first 5 months of 2023, but I think somewhere in between is going to be just fine. They're not tied to him long term. It gives the Cubs a longer runway for two of their top prospects, two top 50 prospects in all of baseball, Pete Crow Armstrong, and now the newly traded for Michael Busch from the Dodgers. Gives them a little more runway, a little less pressure. They're not actually going to start the season as the opening day center fielder potentially or first baseman. They've got Cody Bellinger now to kind of pick up that slack, but at the same time, he's not there for years on end blocking those guys or one or two of those guys. So I think all of that makes a lot of sense. I guess the only thing I guess I would say where the Cubs lose a little bit on is just the 3 years, but that might not be an issue after 1 year, which would be great because that means he had a fantastic year in 2024. So that's kind of where I'm feeling about this. I've come so many different directions since we've been talking about this since last November. It finally came through early in the morning on Sunday. So yeah, I think it's a solid deal. I think it works out for everybody but Scott Boras. So I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, the money makes sense, and I did some I ran some numbers. I did some looking up statistics, and with Belly at 30 million, his OPS plus last year was 133. You take the guy directly below him in salary, like right at the $30 million mark too, which is Alex Bregman. He had a 122 OPS
Yeah.
plus.
Plus.
Soto had a 158, so that's a little. And then if you go the two guys above him, Rafael Devers was 126 and Betts was 163. So him getting $30 million aligns, he's right in there. The two guys directly above him and below him performed worse than he did last year for the Cubs. I think the concern you probably have would be the same concern I would have if I was a Cubs fan is let's hope what happened in that last month isn't indicative of what the 3 years is going to bring, because then it starts to look more like a Jason Hayward signing to a degree. Because, and here's the only reason why, we know the Ricketts can afford it. We know the Ricketts could afford to add even more than what they're doing right now. But when you listen to Tom Ricketts' comments, and this is what I wanted to get at, and it does have to do with the Bellinger, when he makes comments like, that the Cubs should be competing because they're right at the CBT level. That should automatically make them a competitive team. That would worry me a little bit as a fan, because that goes back to what we talked about last year, that you don't confuse activity with accomplishment. And
Yeah.
just because you're spending money at a certain level doesn't mean the result is necessarily going to be there. So,
Right. Yeah, I
and then
totally agree with you there.
so then it gets me worried that, like, if Bellinger doesn't work out, well, he's going to be crying like, well, we can't really add anything to replace him
Yeah.
because I'm right at the CBT level. We should automatically be, and that's a competitive balance tax for everybody who doesn't know that out there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But so
De facto salary
that's
cap.
the only, that to me, like, you and I will never, I will never disagree with the fact that none of these guys should ever cry poor. In fact, every team should be right at the competitive balance tax pretty much. But
Well,
the thing that
the whole
always
tax
worries,
is bullshit anyway.
right, that's
They could
true
go
too.
over it if they chose to. It's
Right,
not a
as
salary cap. So
exactly. But what we see is these owners running it like a business, which you can't completely fault them on that. And when that comes into play, when you're dealing with an owner of that nature, then when you do have a signing like a Bellinger that could, I'm with you. I think he's going to be very close to his numbers last year, so it's not going to really matter. This conversation could be
I'm not
completely
even sure
mute.
of that actually.
But if it goes south, then you're hamstrung with this contract, and he's going to be, well, I don't know. We really can't add, So
Well, I've got two thoughts on your question. I think it's a great question. But number one, when you bring up confusing activity with accomplishment, that might be what all Cubs fans are doing right now. We're so excited about getting Bellinger signed. Well, that makes the Cubs about exactly where they were at last year, which is one game out of the playoffs. They haven't actually improved the roster. They just got him back.
right,
So they're kind of just got back to square one in a way. The other part of that is Ricketts made those comments this weekend before, I think it was Friday. It was probably Friday before the first game they played against your White Sox beat the fuck out of you guys. But
oh yeah, it means a lot.
so they weren't even at the CBT level, full level $237 million level yet. They were at around 200 million before Bellinger signed. So I think what Ricketts was saying was actually a thinly veiled message directly to Scott Boras, saying, "Oh, we're pretty happy with our payroll right where it's at, right around 200 million. We don't really feel like we need to spend anymore." So I think that message, I think that's a reckless a reckless way to do things, but because the fans are absorbing that message at the same time. He also knew that this deal was getting signed in the background, maybe. So there's different ways to look at that. So he did go beyond already by $30 million where they were at when he made those comments. I'd agree though. In general, I've been raking Tom Ricketts over the coals since 2020 for his talking about finances when he shouldn't be talking about them at all. It's ridiculous, especially bringing up the competitive balance tax, because as we've always called it, it's a de facto salary cap just because they made up an arbitrary number that they refused to go over. It only costs them money for the first 3 years, I believe, going over it. Doesn't cost them draft picks or anything like that until after 3 years of being over it. So when they adhere to that number, it's literally just owners just drew up an imaginary number saying we're not going to go over that, and they just choose not to. So I hate it anytime he talks about money or the competitive balance tax, because it's bullshit. So that does concern me when he does that. But I think there are mitigating factors. I do think there was a lot going on prior to this weekend with reports that Scott Boras was playing his old games, trying to circumvent the general manager and president, Jed Hoyer, and going directly to ownership. And he spoke, part of the Ricketts comments were directly to Scott Boras, saying, I don't need to talk directly to him. I don't want to undermine the authority of my general manager. He can speak to Jed Hoyer. So there's a lot going on there, I guess. But the weird thing is, even I've seen two different numbers about the competitive balance tax and what the Cubs payroll is right now after the Bellinger signing. Bruce Levine reported on Sunday on 670 The Score that the Cubs were over the tax threshold after signing him, which is just false. It's not true. The first number I looked up showed that they were close to being to that $237 million. They were 234 point something. So they were within 3 million of being at the tax threshold. So, but then I heard tonight, listen to The Score, another calculation shows that they are only at 217 million. So they've got another 20 million they could spend if they want on starting pitching is the main area I'd like them to look at. But so it's all a little bit nebulous, I guess. And maybe I've just talked my way around your actual question, but I do find it a bit concerning when my owner talks about bullshit like competitive balance tax. It's something that they factor into what they're going to do with the roster.
According to Fangraphs, their
Yeah.
payroll is 234, 242, 381.
And that's what I saw on Sunday after Bruce Levine was totally wrong. But then tonight I was hearing it on Parkinson Spiegel on 670 The Score that's not true. They're at 217. So I don't know what that means. I also heard that number shifts if Bellinger opts out of the deal after the season because the average annual value of the contract shifts. So that it is a fluid number based on what happens in the future. So that's why if you're going to adhere to that tax, or if you're nervous about going over, they've got to calculate those possibilities. And if people opt out, how that shifts the actual payroll or what's counted towards the tax threshold. So my God, this just got really boring. I think I'm not sure
I know, yeah.
anybody's listening anymore. So we could. I'd like to at least move on to like what I brought up a moment ago. With I think the Cubs need more starting pitching. They have not really addressed that. They lost Marcus Stroman and signed Shota Imanaga, but that's a zero-sum game, and we're not even really sure what Imanaga is going to be in the major leagues. We have not seen him pitch in America, so I'm not sure what they're actually getting out of that. It's potentially as good as Stroman was in the first half. Maybe it's equal to what Stroman was through if you take the full season. They need another starter, I think. And if they're really not going to go out and sign Jordan Montgomery, or even Michael Lorenzen is another pitcher that's out there that was with the Tigers, had a stellar first half and even had a no-hitter with the Phillies after the Tigers traded him. If they're not going to go the free agent route, we talked about it many times. Do they go in the trade market? Again, the perfect match feels like it's Dylan Cease. And I just, for so much baggage between the Cubs and White Sox, and specifically with trades involving Dylan Cease, I'm not sure that's even plausible, but it's fun to think about, I guess. But it seems more likely if the Cubs share my thoughts and that they need more starting pitching depth, that they could pursue that. It appears what they're doing is going to rely on their robust farm system, which is they tried to do that last year with the bullpen, but they had so many injuries in their system that they couldn't replenish that, and they sputtered and failed down the stretch. So that might be a risky way to go. They've got two of their top pitching prospects are ready to possibly join the majors, and Cade Horton and Ben Brown. I don't think they want to rely on that again. It would be cool to see those guys get called up at some point, but I mean, that would be your sixth and seventh starter after the rotation they have set right now. But most teams like to go into a season with up to eight starters in their rotation that they'd be happy with, and hopefully 5 of them work out and stay healthy. So that's where they're at right now. I mean, we're really back at square one. As happy as Cubs fans and Cub Nation is for getting Bellinger signed and I think it's a smart move for where they're at. It's still back to square one, where they were last year, coming one game short of making the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it was close, so we'll see.
Yeah, real close. And then the team that beat them went to the fucking World Series, and that's another thing that Tom Ricketts was talking about that pissed me off actually during that. It's like, well, we were so close, and he's using the outlier as the example that the Cubs are following. If that's indeed, if he wants to be the Arizona Diamondbacks, I find that just absurd when he's in the third largest market in the country. And then you just saw the team that actually won the World Series spent more money than anybody. So the Texas Rangers, with all the $1 billion of signings they made in the last 2 years. So
Yep.
his example is poor, if you ask me. it just strikes a nerve with me. Just, for years now, since the trade of Yu Darvish. I used to love Tom Ricketts, and he's just annoying me every time he opens his mouth and talks about money.
I know. It's almost like you're a Sox fan.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's another owner in Chicago talking about money. Do you want to switch to your half a town over there?
Yeah, why don't we? Why don't we talk about Jerry, who's somehow seems to be crying poor as he makes his way down, waddles his way down to Springfield to rub
Wearing
elbows.
his leather jacket.
Yeah, to rub elbows with aldermen, or I mean senators, state senators, and pitch his $1 billion to start anyway. $1 billion he needs to fund a new stadium. Does this sound familiar, everyone?
Yeah, history repeats itself, as the famous saying goes, because he pulled this exact same shit in 1987, 1988.
Yeah, I'm
demanding
leaving
funds from the state of Illinois.
Well, it's the same.
Build.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm interrupting your segment, so cut me off as much as you want. But
well, it's the same. It's like the script. I'm gonna leave town. Hey, I'm meeting with I'm meeting with the mayor of Nashville. See, I'm down here. I'm just gonna have a nice little conversation with him, or it was the governor or whatever.
He's actually
Tennessee.
even gotten more clever than that, since he tried the same thing in the late 80s with moving to Tampa.
Yeah.
This time he's saying, well, I'll be dead soon. I'm selling my sons are going to sell the team. So if you don't give me a new stadium, those new owners
are gonna,
will most likely try to leave. So it's like another level of deviousness. That, by the way, I think that's why we're going to nominate Jerry Reinsdorf to be our asshole of the week.
Fresh off of asshole of the year.
Yeah, our reigning asshole of the year for 2023 gets our first asshole of the week. Hat in hand, begging the state of Illinois to build him yet another stadium. It's unreal.
And it didn't stop there. No, he needs the stadium, because without the stadium, the Sox can't be competitive, because their current stadium's in Bridgeport, and even the year after they won the World Series, they couldn't draw 3 million people. No one will come to that stadium.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 400,000 short of 3 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
so he's basically blaming Bridgeport for the White Sox being shitty. It's like,
yeah,
well,
and that's where my family
fielded
grew up.
more competitive teams.
That's where I'm fucking from, Jerry. So fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've been there for 100 years, and he's shitting on them after this. Yeah. It's just unreal that he would even bring that up. But
and when you look at it,
go ahead.
Just spend money. Put a competitive team on the field. You'll have 2.9 million people there every year, which will be more than enough money to line you and your family's pockets for the rest of their lives. But no, You're too fucking cheap. You are too fucking cheap to do what's right. Stay at the stadium. I don't care. Yes, the renderings look great, but every rendering always looks great. I mean, look what happened with Texas. So and I don't, if they move, if this deal goes through, and it'll be interesting to see how it gets done. If it does go through, if he ends up getting the investments himself, which I doubt that's going to happen, but fine with that too. But there is no reason, if you put a competitive quality product on the field year in and year out, that you wouldn't have anywhere from 2.5 million to 3 million fans out there every year. There's no
Yeah,
reason.
they proved it. It was a horrible example he used, and he basically blamed the fans. He blamed Bridgeport, all of that. But even if somehow that were true, that Bridgeport is the problem, fine. Go pay for your own goddamn stadium.
Yeah,
Why is it the taxpayers' responsibility to build you your stadium?
exactly.
That's the part that is so galling. And he's done it twice now. And it never enters his mind that he should be the one paying for this, his own stadium. It should be Illinois taxpayers. And technically this is we're talking about collective bargaining tax or a competitive balance tax before this, but there's more tax issues here that are a bit complicated that we would shed some light on what's going on, why this is happening right now. You may have also noticed the Bears are negotiating with the city for a new stadium,
They
potentially
sure
in the
are.
city instead of on the property they already own in Arlington Heights. That's not a coincidence that both the White Sox and the Bears are talking about this shit in the first quarter of 2024. There is a tax loophole in the city of Chicago that is closing at the end of 2024. It was written into law, I believe, in the middle of the pandemic for whatever reason. The current 2% hotel tax that is helping to pay for the current Comiskey Park, Sox Park 2.0, that tax can be grandfathered in to one brand new stadium if it is agreed upon before the end of 2024.
Oh,
Can't be
shit.
agreed. It can't be used for two different stadiums. It can be used for one stadium.
Tick tock,
So
tick
the
tock.
Bears are, the Bears are jumping in. The White Sox are all jumping in. They want that 2% tax to be grandfathered into whatever new stadium emerges. So you can argue then that this is not a new tax on Illinois taxpayers. In fact, it's aimed at tourists, for people coming into the city, staying in hotels. So that's part of the argument for this. But the other part of that is, why does that tax money need to be spent on a fucking stadium? Maybe the
Exactly.
public good is served better, building hospitals or schools or something else. So just the idea that it has to be a stadium and that's good for Illinois and Chicago, that's not necessarily true. What is true is it's 100% good for Jerry Reinsdorf to build the value of his franchise by probably twofold just before he dies, to hand it to his children. So
I mean,
it's just gross.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I will like, if you want to say that because someone who's visiting Chicago has to get on red line train to go to your stadium if they're staying in downtown Chicago versus being able to walk over there because of where your stadium's located. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you that that's way more ideal for a convenient built-in, I'm in Chicago, the White Sox are in town, it's a 10-minute walk down Clark Street from my hotel.
It would be gorgeous
Yeah,
with the cityscape and the backdrop.
yeah.
It would be a reason to come to downtown Chicago.
Where I
So no
take
one's
it,
arguing that.
yeah, the exception I take again is to just put it all back on the area of Bridgeport, which
Yeah.
again, Jerry, if you did the original plans, we might not even be having this conversation because it would have been like Wrigley Field around the ballpark, but you
Yeah.
greedily went with, I want to keep the money in the park. We'll put a bar inside the park. We'll do this
Yeah.
inside the park. So
Yeah, he didn't want any development like Wrigleyville to spring up around. He wanted all the
yeah,
money to funnel directly to him.
yeah.
And
So again,
that's
just fuck you,
now
dude.
he's saying that, now he's using that against them. So it's just it's so bad.
I mean, I guess we did get the breaking news before coming on the air that Pritzker pretty much gave the hey ho, hi ho sign saying that I really haven't seen anything to benefit Illinois taxpayers by investing $1 billion into the stadium. So until I see something like that, there's really not much to talk about. That's the
Yeah.
summary of his statement. So, I mean, and
Yeah,
I
he was
agree. I
not did
agree
not
with him.
yeah, he did not sound receptive to the idea. And I don't think a proposal was made directly to the governor. I think Jerry was meeting with senators, like you said. So, but he did need to speak on it. It's also interesting that Pritzker is potentially going to be a presidential candidate in 4 years. So
Yeah,
he's got to walk lightly, or not piss people off by making the wrong decision here. So I think it's going to be pretty obvious what's happening.
yeah,
I do think Jerry might have, as bad as he looks and sounds in the media, he clearly just does not give a shit. I don't think he's stupid. I think what he's asking for is the moon and hoping for something less than that.
yeah.
That might be more palatable. Like if he's asking for $1 billion, making headlines all over the place, what he really wants is 300 million, 400 million
Yeah.
that will help him out enough to get it done, but make the lawmakers and politicians look good that they stood up to him, but still gave him what he wanted. It was just packaged in a way to make everybody look good, which that's how business works usually. So I don't know. It's interesting because these deals usually take forever to come to fruition. But since that tax loophole is closing at the end of 2024, we're going to learn a lot about this, and it's going to be a fast timeline to learn this. So this is not going to drag out over years. We're going to know what's going to be happening by the end of the season. So
Tick
we'll look
tock,
forward to
tick
that.
tock.
In the meantime, I think we can safely call Jerry Reinsdorf. You are an asshole.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of Jerry and his money, this disturbed me. I this little this got fed to me in my Twitter feed, and I went on and confirmed it. Do you know the White Sox have the highest payroll in the AL Central, and I have a 0.7% chance, 0.7% chance of winning the division, and a 0% chance of making the playoffs? They have the highest payroll in the AL
Yikes.
Central. But now it gets more disturbing for the AL Central as a whole, and we can drill down and understand why they are quite possibly the worst division in baseball. They're not even at the payroll average. The Sox are just below the payroll average, and they're the highest spending team in the AL Central.
By quite a
So,
bit, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah, by quite a bit. I think it's by like close to $20 million over the next closest team. So, just like, wow, what a fucking, it makes sense for a lot of other teams in the division though, because they're in smaller markets than the White Sox. But the fact that the White Sox are below the average, but
Yeah.
still the highest payroll in the AL Central, and quite possibly the worst team in the AL Central, is one of the biggest fucking disappointments in White Sox history.
That explains why your general manager and your president got fired last year for putting you in that situation. But I think isn't like 20% of that total payroll going directly to Yohan Moncada?
Yeah, probably.
He's I
Well,
mean,
yeah, it's 162 million or something like that.
okay, so it's a
Yeah,
little at
yeah,
15% or
yeah,
whatever, but it's
yeah. You're
significant.
you're
But
you're right there though. It would also explain that, like, why we're in like a situation when you're watching the beginning of Major League and you're looking at the guys who have been invited to camp and you're like, who the fuck are these guys? The White Sox, in historic fashion, have invited 70 players to camp this year, a record. And to put that in perspective, I think I read, was it the Tigers or the Cubs have 59? I think it's the Cubs have 59 players in camp right now. They have 59 players there. The Sox have 11 more players than the Cubs. 30 of them are non-roster invitees, obviously. So,
sure.
like, it's they're just throwing shit up on the wall and trying to
Yeah.
make it stick.
See if anything sticks.
One thing that we know is going to stick, Ryan, and you brought this to my attention, Smitty, the fast
Oh.
principles.
Yes. FAST, coined by your manager
Pedro
after,
Agrafal.
yes, Pedro Grafal, after, much like the Bears, again, the Bears come up in this podcast, but Bears
This is the
coach Matt
dirtiest podcast ever.
Eberflus, yeah, Matt Eberflus made up the HITS principle, which immediately just sounded so corny. An acronym for, I don't even know what it stood for, but the in similar fashion, the corny acronym FAST is going to be applied to your 2024 White Sox. F is for what?
Fearless,
Fearless?
yes. A is for
Okay.
aggressive.
Aggressive. Okay.
No, aggressive. What'd you say? I said what?
I said aggressive, like uh,
S is for
Rounders.
selfless.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got you. S is for
Thank
selfless.
you. I
And
told you we
then
were going to struggle with this new platform.
and then T, which Smitty and I both kind of agree maybe this changes the acronym. It's not for technical, but it's technically sound.
So it's fasts.
Yeah, it's
Fasts.
fasts. I think it's fasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was corny to begin with. Its acronyms are corny, motivational tools to begin with. But yeah, if you can't even get it quite right, it's another thing. But the irony is that fast would have been a good idea for your new catcher in the second inning of your first spring training game. Martin Maldonado should have made it his way as fast as he could to first base, running out a grounder, except he chose not to for whatever reason. He loafed it over to first. I think he eventually had to apologize to his teammates for not legging it out. It's just a little bit of irony. I actually think he's an aging catcher. I don't think you want
Yeah.
him running too hard to
I
begin with.
know.
So it was just a bad look in the first game after this corny principle got unveiled to the public.
Yes. There was also did you see there was a Paul DeYoung apology when he was while the ball was still live, like arguing with an umpire, and it allowed someone to steal home plate and score.
Oh my god!
You're like we're
No,
off.
so you're
We're
issuing apologies. We're
yeah.
like 3 games into
And
the preseason.
yeah.
You're
Then
already
he's then
issuing
he
2 apologies.
yeah. So he was apologizing to teammates for not paying attention, and I'm like, oh, this season's really shaping up like I thought it was gonna so far.
Yeah,
It's off and running.
it is.
Last thing to note on the White Sox is we've got a couple signings, but it's not the White Sox signing anyone, it's ex-players signing elsewhere. Liam
Oh yeah,
Hendriks found a home with the Red Sox, 2 years, $10 million. Seems pretty
not bad.
reasonable. Yeah. He has some in performance incentives in there too, so that could get higher. And then the prodigal son, Tim Anderson, finds a home with the Miami Marlins. 1 year,
Yeah,
$5 million with, I think, a second year option or something like that.
boy.
So,
I mean, his star has fallen so dramatic. He didn't get any offers until just now. I think that's the only offer he's received. He just had to take it. 5 million. He was making 14 last year, wasn't
yeah.
he?
Yeah. And then we had discussed, like, does it make sense to pick up his option because I think it was like 17 or something? Because if he's really great, if he has a rebound, is it worth just investing in that and then trading him at the trade deadline? But yikes, like he's just got so much baggage and such inconsistent play that he gets 5 million. Who knows? It could be the best deal in baseball if he can find his mojo again. So
There seems to be a connection with Miami and the White Sox because, of course, Ozzie Guillen went there, flamed out in spectacular fashion. Jake Berger just got traded there.
yep.
Mark Burley was once a Marlin, wasn't he?
Yeah, I
The end of
think
his
so.
career?
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, there seems to be a connection of some sort there. But so yeah, I guess it's not going to look too strange seeing Tim in a Marlins uniform. But I don't know. I hope I always liked him. It was just last year was just such a disaster in so many ways. But hopefully he can get his personal life together and get his baseball baseball life back together
Yeah, I
in
mean,
Miami.
I wish him all the luck in the world. I mean, he's really fun to watch when he's doing well. I mean, there's
Yeah.
good shit happens on the field. So good
Maybe
luck,
he just needed
Timmy.
to get the fuck out. Change the scenery will solve everything.
Well, he didn't he say something. I hate this fucking place last year or something to Jose
Mm,
Abreu
there
or
was some speculation that might
yeah,
have been what he said.
yeah. So there you go. Well, with that, we can move on to, I believe, aesthetics.
Absolutely. Yeah. The biggest, I mean, typically aesthetics we reserve to the end of the podcast. You humor me over the years as I'm obsessed with this shit because I am a graphic designer by trade, but the look of baseball uniforms, baseball logos, usually it's a very ancillary subject, but somehow right now the uniforms in Major League Baseball are probably the number one story in MLB as Fanatics and Nike combined to release a brand new uniform chassis, they call it, that is pretty much hated by everyone that has laid eyes upon it. Players, fans, everyone are just completely trashing these new uniforms. I've seen pictures. I haven't seen a whole lot. I haven't like Tigers games have not spring training games have not been on TV, so I haven't seen them in action. But I've seen the photographs.
Yeah.
A lot of them are poorly lit, so some of the issues could be because of that. But they look like shit from everything I've seen, and they sound like they're cheaply made. They have gotten rid of embroidered patches. They've made the names on the backs of the uniforms much smaller. The numbers are a little bit smaller. The material, I guess, is supposed to be a lightweight uh, wicking material, which basically what they're trying to do is create the lightest weight uniform possible. They've decided that they want to basically forego aesthetics for performance. They think that the lighter uniform is what the players want, and somehow something got lost in translation because the players are just as upset as anybody about how they're looking and feeling in these. I've heard them compared to like not even replica jerseys. They're like the giveaway jerseys that have like iron on printing. It's just such a bad look, and it's just amazing that Nike and even Fanatics can be involved with this. Doesn't surprise me that MLB could fuck this up somehow, but that Nike would risk their reputation on something like this is crazy. The players are complaining about it. I've got a bunch of quotes here from different players. I think the names look really bad, honestly. An unnamed Cardinals player. He wouldn't put his name to it. I don't know why he was scared to say that. It looks like a replica, Taylor Ward of the Angels. I like the old ones. Tommy Cannell, Yankees? I don't even know who that is. The pants they made are terrible. An
Yeah,
unnamed Tigers player.
yeah, the pants are one of the bigger issues.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you
then
heard
you
too they
get
couldn't even get the pants, right? Did you hear about
well, there's
that?
more. Yeah, there's much more to this. Yeah,
Yeah.
the pants are an issue on several levels. First of all, they don't have enough pants available. Apparently, there are supply chain issues. So teams have encouraged players to wear their pants from last year,
Yes.
which is just unreal. The other issue
Classic.
with the pants is that they're essentially see-through, uh, which is a disturbing idea. I mean, we always cry for transparency in our organizations, but we don't want transparency in our team's uniforms. I mean, they're so cheap we'll be able to see their balls.
Yes, you can't
Somebody
unsee it.
else somebody else pointed out like what's going to happen during the first rainy game? Like we're seeing games in pristine Florida and Arizona. I hate to think what we're going to see in an NC-17 rain game. It's hilarious that these questions are even coming up. It's to the point now where the MLB Players Association has stepped in. Tony Clark is demanding that they go back to the old uniforms before the season starts, or they have something new delivered to them in time for the season. So this story is not over. I mean, as preposterous as it is, it's only the beginning. We are we are seeing we are seeing many twists and turns in this, and I don't know where it's going to end. I think they might end up having to go back to last year's uniforms, which would just be a colossal disaster for Nike. The other part of this rollout had to do on the consumer side, and that's where Fanatics is also involved. I don't know if you've noticed over the last several years, Fanatics has basically taken over the entire sports merchandising industry.
Yep.
If you go to MLB.shop or the NFL's shop or any major leagues shop, that's all run by Fanatics. So every t-shirt, all that shit is basically manufactured and sold to you by Fanatics. Fortunately, caps are still held. The official caps of baseball are still held by New Era, which that the quality of the caps has not changed whatsoever, thank God. But Fanatics is also selling the authentic jerseys. Nike's come up with actually 3 levels. There used to be able to get the authentics and a replica. That's across all sports. But they've added a middle tier to that, which I don't fully understand. But the problem is, even the authentics are of worse quality than replicas used to be. So,
right.
At the same time, the authentic jersey. Now, I'm not a jersey guy. I have got a couple baseball jerseys, but I haven't bought a good jersey in like 15, 20 years almost.
Yeah.
I thought the high end of jerseys is about $200. I used to buy hockey jerseys. Like I have authentic Wings jerseys with the tie downs and everything. That I think I spent $200 on. Did you know the current jerseys, authentic baseball jerseys, are $450?
Seems a little steep.
I can't imagine spending. What's that?
Seems a little steep.
Yeah, I can't imagine spending that on anything. Like even if it was, the old awesome jerseys that had real embroidery and everything. I can't imagine paying for these pieces of shit $450. So there's some weird shit happening here, and there's going to be a lot more to this story before the end of the spring training.
I think they did this with football a couple years ago. There were like,
did they?
Yeah, there's like the authentic jersey. Then there's like this mid-tier one where some of the stuff is stitched on and some of it's not. And then there's the full-on where everything's like ironed on.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's probably where they got this idea from the NFL, who was the kings of milking every penny out of their fans. So, yeah, this is such an embarrassing moment.
Yeah, Fanatics.
I don't know who to blame. If it's,
I would blame Fanatics probably somehow. I mean, they bought Topps too. They own almost.
They bought Majestic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They bought Majestic.
They own
bought
everything.
Topps. I mean, they've basically have absorbed all the key areas of sports.
When this is the danger of monopolies, they control the entire market. They can give you a shit product and make you take it. And actually, Major League Baseball players are feeling the brunt of that right now, which is unreal. But this is not the only aesthetic segment we have for the evening, as it was announced last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, that the Tigers will actually be one of 9 teams getting their own Nike City Connect uniforms this year.
9 teams?
That's going to be the rest of Major League Baseball, which was unexpected because I had seen late last year that the Tigers were not going to have a Nike City Connect uniform, as your White Sox and the Cubs and everyone else has received, to mixed reviews, which we have reviewed every single one of them. But the Tigers are going to be included with the rest of Major League Baseball. They just decided they wanted to wrap everybody in at once, except for 2 key exceptions. The New York Yankees, of course, will not be receiving a Nike City Connect uniform.
They've refused, right?
They have refused. They made a minor change to their road uniform, which we chronicled last episode in Aesthetics. But they will not be getting a City Connect. The other team is the Oakland A's, because they don't know what city they're going to be in. So, yeah, that might explain that. But the Tigers are going to get one. I am excited. Let's see what they look like on the field. Most likely, I won't be buying a jersey, as the quality is mediocre. Plus, I think I'm just not really a jersey guy. I might look for a T-shirt. Like you've got like a Southside T-shirt that kind of mimicks the jersey look.
I sure do there, buddy.
I'll probably get one of those if it looks cool. I will definitely get a hat. Hopefully it is cool. I'm assuming, Motor City, it's got to be the theme. If they're going to make a city connect with the city of Detroit, it is the Motor City. And the Tigers really have no branding that ties them directly to the auto industry. So I think that would be an obvious direction they could go in. I'm thinking they might play up the orange accent color that is part of their brand. You don't see a ton of orange other than their orange spring training caps this year. They might do an orange jersey. I'm thinking. We'll see. I'm excited to see what they come up with. I'm really excited to buy a hat if it's cool enough. Like, Christ, I mean, I hate to give you guys compliments, but the White Sox knocked it out of the park with their Southside City Connect uniforms. Your hat, the CHI hat is cool as hell. The Southside T-shirt that you had, I think you were wearing that last week, actually. Last episode. That's cool as hell. It all works. The pants was the only thing I was questioning at the time of your Southside uniform, but the whole thing looks cool. So I'm dying to see what the folks at Nike can come up with in conjunction with the Tigers. We're going to be busy though with aesthetic segments if there's going to be 9 different releases throughout the
Everyone's
spring and
dream is
summer.
coming true early. Do you think my question for you on the Tigers jersey, do you think there's going to be a little Caesars patch?
Well, that might be where they go back with the orange because, of course, Little Caesars colors are orange and black,
Yeah, see?
not orange and navy. So
There's a huge
they might need to
opportunity
tie
there.
that in somehow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see how that ties in. Yeah, there's been many artificial intelligence interpretations of what the City Connect jerseys could look like, all of which are horrific. Some of which did involve pizza, which I thought was hilarious. So I've seen lots, but hopefully they can come up with something interesting. But they announced all uniforms are going to be unveiled before the All-Star break. So there's going to be a lot going on in the first 3 months of the season. So we're going to be busy every week. We'll probably have an aesthetics segment to go over. So buckle up, kids. My favorite segment, and yours soon.
Debatable.
I think with that, we should
Can roll right into.
Oh no, we're not changing over.
You go roll right into the Tigers and your 5 storylines.
Yeah, I'm struggling here tonight. This new technology, all this, I'm hurting, but we'll get it figured out. I do have 5 storylines I'm thinking about going into this season with my Detroit Tigers. I'll keep it brief. I can see you rolling your eyes already, but
I'm not. I'm interested to hear these. All kidding aside, I like to bust your chops, but I'm interested. The Tigers are an exciting team, so let's see what they are.
I think they are an exciting team. It's interesting. They haven't done a ton in the offseason. They did sign Jack Flaherty. They did sign Kenta Maeda. They signed Mark Canha for the outfield. A lot of Tigers fans, I'm listening to Sports Talk Radio, of course, and a lot of people are upset that they haven't done more free agent signings. As you mentioned, the payroll is far below even average. I think they're not even at $100 million yet. I don't think it's the right time to spend. I don't think literally we just got out from underneath the onerous Miguel Cabrera contract, paying him $35 million a year. We're not even 2 off seasons removed from getting kicked in the balls by a Javi Baez contract that is totally worthless.
Ooh, I think it's more like a punch.
So why would we want to risk that again at this point when we have so much young talent coming through the system that's ready to get to the major league level? So I just sort of came up with that. That's not even a storyline I had written down, but it's just something I've heard lately that fans always want more. They want the owners to spend more. I don't think this is the right time, but mainly because we have talents like Spencer Torkelson. And that's my first storyline I really want to get into. I'll be looking at is, can he repeat his 30-plus home run performance? Is that who he is now? He had a massive second half. Where things just started to fall into place. Is that who he is now? Is he a 30-plus home run hitter? I think his pedigree says he is a number 1 overall pick. We've just now seen it, and maybe he's just scratching the surface. But that's the first thing I'm going to be looking at. Number 2 is coming back to the aforementioned Javi Baez. Can we get anything out of Javi Baez. He's amongst the worst hitters in baseball over the last 2 seasons. And it's just so I have such a different I have such a different perspective than most Tigers fans because I lived in Chicago for 25 years and was a huge Javi Baez fan during that time. And what Tigers fans have witnessed out of Javi Baez is the opposite of what I saw in Chicago. They have not seen any of the glory days. They've not seen any of his magical performances. So I could see why people would be extremely frustrated in Detroit with Javi Baez, but that's not the real Javi Baez. If he could even be half of what he was in Chicago, it'd be such an improvement of what we've seen in Detroit. So he is still owed $98 million.
Enjoy that.
And that's just another reason I don't want to see the Tigers just jump into another big long-term contract of some free agent that they'd be going after at this point. So a lot of people are looking at Matt Chapman because the Tigers do have a deficiency at third base potentially, but he's probably looking at a shorter term deal at this point, similar to the Cody Bellinger. Now that it's so late in the season, late in the off season, but I don't think we need to. I don't think the Tigers would be wise to saddle themselves with another big contract like like we're seeing with Javi Baez. That same scenario could be easily playing out and crippling a middle market team like the Tigers, as opposed to the Cubs, who can absorb it much easier. One thing Baez did say he changed his workout routine, his conditioning routine over the offseason. He's feeling much better than he has. We hear this all the time, but something I hadn't heard about is he had been dealing with a lower back issue for the last 2 full years, which seems unlikely, but that's what he's saying. It says lower back and core issues for the last 2 years, but those have subsided somehow because of this new strength and conditioning program he's adhering to. So maybe that'll make all the difference. I guess it would explain how he could go from one of the more exciting players in baseball to one of the worst in no time at all. So that could be an explanation, not just an excuse, but I guess we'll see. Similar to my first storyline, I want to know if Tarek Skubal can continue his pretty much Cy Young worthy second half of the season this past year. He only pitched in 15 games. He was out with an injury for the first half, but he had a 2.8 ERA, 0.9 whip, 102 strikeouts over 80 innings. That is a fairly small sample size. That's basically half a season. But if he can continue that going forward, that is a veritable ace. And the Tigers have their ace in their rotation, which basically bolsters the whole depth of that rotation with the additions of Maeda and Jack Flaherty. You couple that with Casey Mize coming off injury, Matt Manning coming off multiple injuries last year, and more coming through the system. So if Tariq Skubal is an ace and Cy Young level ace, they've got something going this year, especially in the very weak AL Central. Storyline number 4 that I'm looking at is, will Colt Keith live up to his unprecedented Tigers contract? Signing him to a 6-year extension, $28 million before he's ever played a Major League Baseball game. That we talked about last episode. It's not nearly as debilitating as I thought. I think it's a smart move for both sides. But again, there's a lot of pressure on him. Like with that deal, he's got to be the opening day second baseman for the Tigers. Like it would be very embarrassing for him and the Tigers if he signs this extension and can't even make the opening day roster. So there's a lot of pressure on him, I think, and I'm curious to see how that plays out. The final question I have, storyline I will be watching, and all Tigers fans will be watching going into the season, is: can Riley Green stay healthy? In his 2 seasons as a major leaguer, he has not completed more than 99 games.
Ugh.
When he is playing, he is a 300 hitter. He is a difference maker in the middle of that lineup. He is a potential all-star, but if he can only play 2/3 of the games every year, doesn't do you much good. So I want to see Riley Green stay healthy.
Yeah. I feel your pain, man. At least it's one guy for you, not, well, I guess you had the problem with the pitching staff too, but for the Sox, it's like 4 position players.
Yeah.
You got to stay on the field.
Yeah.
So Well, we'll
Well,
keep
that's
an
all I've
we'll,
got for my Tigers.
yeah, we'll keep an eye on those this upcoming season for the Tigers. I'll be watching with all 5 of those in mind every Tigers game I watch.
You wrote them down while I was talking. I appreciate
Oh,
that.
I've submitted those to memory. They're committed. I mean, they're committed. Not I submitted and committed those to memory. Yeah, I guess
Well, I
we'll
think we
move
might as
into
well some gigantism.
yeah, let's move into some gigantism. It's like we've never
We've got
done
a
this.
delay with this. Yeah, we've got a delay of some sort with this new podcasting platform, so that's why we're stumbling over each other. So we'll try and get that ironed out for the next episode.
It's like we've never done this before.
It's only
Gi-
episode 141.
Gigantism. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally, we may have a legit we have a legit. Will he do it though? We have a legit 30 home run hitter signed to the lineup. Jorge Soler,
Wow.
who I enjoy. I love to watch him hit. Not the greatest in the field, but
No.
added that power hitter to the lineup that they needed. A 3-year, $42 million contract, pretty friendly, I think. That's not an outrageous contract for, I believe, what he had, like 38 home runs last year for the
Yeah.
Marlins. He would be, you're sitting down, he would be the
I am sitting
first
down.
30 home run hitter for the Giants since 2004 when Barry Bonds did it. They have not had
Oh my
any
God.
player eclipse the 30 home run mark since 2004.
And yet you've won 3 World Series in that
not even
time.
Buster Posey or anything when he was ripping the ball was hitting more than 30 home runs. Like
Yet
that
you won
is
3 World Series. So
yes.
that's amazing, though.
Now you will. We can go back to a couple years ago when they had that historic season. They may have not had any 30 home run hitter, but they were like in the top of the league in total home runs. So they're more balanced where like they have a bunch of guys hitting around like 25 or so. But having a legit like game-changing threat in the lineup is gonna be huge for them.
That's big.
I'm happy to see it. But on the complete flip side of that, within a week or so, I guess it was, of the Soler signing, I text you in joy of the Soler signing. News comes out that the panda's back. Kung Fu Panda
Kung Fu
is back.
Panda.
Pablo
Sandoval.
He has returned. He has been invited to camp. This is a guy who last played in the MLB in 2021, in July of 2021 to be exact. Played in the Mexican League in 2022 and didn't play baseball at all in 2023. Now, the funny little story that came out about this was Giants president of baseball operations, Farhan Saeed, was interviewed.
Zahidi.
And this is what he had to say. We had to sign Pablo because the workout videos he was sending me were taking up all of the space on my phone. So if you're wondering why he has been invited to camp, it has a I think it was a minor league contract he signed, was because of that. So that the mystery is solved. Now, Smitty and I were also speculating, quite possibly, could it be some big tie-in with DreamWorks Kung Fu Panda 4 coming out? Is that a possibility? Yeah. You never know. You don't put it past any organization.
That's this month or next month.
Marketing opportunities exist. So those are a couple giant notes.
That would actually make as much sense as anything as,
yeah,
as
exactly.
having the president's phone blown up by him too much. I was wondering where he had been. I didn't realize, thank you for that history lesson I didn't realize he had been out of baseball this time. He was last with the Red Sox, was he not?
Yeah, that was July 2021 when they
okay.
I think they cut
that was
him.
A complete disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, see how that plays out.
Yeah, I did. There was something that popped up on my I got an alert on my watch while we were been recording here, and it was that no longer with the Giants, Brandon Crawford is about to sign with the Cardinals. So
Oh, I was wondering
Ex
where he was going. Yeah.
Giant shortstop Brandon Crawford will be a backup shortstop for the beloved St. Louis Cardinals. That's
Yeah.
all I got.
Isn't Brandon Belt still a free agent too, or is
Yeah,
he
I think
back?
so. Yeah, I think
I thought
so.
maybe that's who you were talking about because I could see either of them. I don't know, I could see either of them in Cardinals uniforms for some reason, so it's not too
Yeah.
surprising.
Or did the Giants exercise like a?
I thought I saw him on the free agent list, but I
Oh,
may have
he
been
is. Yeah,
wrong.
he may be. It says he may be close to signing somewhere soon. I mean,
Probably
he
the
is
Cardinals.
35 years old, so could be the Cardinals. You're right.
Well, I think we can stay in the Bay Area if you don't mind if we move across the Bay Bridge to talk about my fucking A's and their ridiculous stadium situation that has enthralled everyone for the last several years, it seems. John Fisher is feeling pressure from all sides to get this new stadium deal figured out and to find out where the fuck his team is going to be playing after this coming season, after the 2024 season. He potentially has a stadium maybe being built in Las Vegas,
Mm,
but that will not be open until 2028. So where is he going to be playing? Where will his team be playing between the end of this season and 2028? I put up the idea that he could potentially disband his franchise for that period. At which point, our video on that from that last episode is, I guess you could say, it went viral. We've got over 1,700 views on YouTube to see what's going on with the potential of the Oakland A's disbanding. I stole that from another source. It was a bit dubious at best, but there was some plausibility to that idea, as outlandish as it sounds, but equally outlandish is the behavior of one John Fisher. In the meantime, Fisher is facing pressure from all sides. Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman, potentially in relation to Saul Goodman, I'm not sure, but she came out saying that the A's should just go back to Oakland, which is a shocking headline. This is a few weeks ago. She immediately backed off of that the next day, saying that was a bit harsh. But the problems that she was experiencing dealing with John Fisher got her frustrated to the point where she thought that they should just go back to Oakland. Her comments are a little bit dubious in that the proposed new A's stadium isn't even in Las Vegas proper. It's in an unincorporated section of the Strip that does not come under the mayor of Las Vegas's jurisdiction. So perhaps she was just perturbed that her city would not be receiving any tax revenue from this new stadium in the proposed location. So that's a little bit of a confusing situation. And of course, she's backed off of their comments too. But the mayor of Oakland was quick to pick up on those comments and said that Las Vegas is just experiencing the same frustrating negotiation tactics that John Fisher employs that Oakland has been feeling all this time. So she was not surprised at all that Vegas is throwing up their hands as well, saying, "What the fuck? What are we doing?" She also mentioned that they are in talks with potential new ownership groups. If John Fisher was forced to sell the team, Oakland is trying to put together ownership groups that could actually buy it from him instead
hmm.
of moving to Las Vegas, which is a very popular, I would think, a quite popular move by an Oakland mayor. I don't know how far those conversations have gone. They still have the issues of California taxpayers not willing to fork over billions of dollars, which you cannot blame them. So a new ownership group would have to be quite uh, quite robust to be able to buy the franchise and build a stadium. So that's I haven't heard a whole lot of that going much further, but that's something to keep an eye on. So he's receiving pressure from two different mayors, but he's receiving the most pressure, of course, from Oakland A's fans, and I applaud them every time I see that. I follow lots of different fan groups on social media. I try to do all I can from afar to support them, but fans are now organizing an opening day boycott, which I think is a brilliant idea and has a lot of potential to be an extreme newsmaker and very successful. The, funny enough, the A's are actually forced to be offering buy one, get one free tickets to opening day,
Wow.
which I have never heard of
The White Sox
to
don't even
any
have to do
game.
that.
Yes. I think there's a potential no one's going to be there. Because what A's fan would want to support that if they could, if they want to go to games, go to the second day, but go to the stadium and support the boycott, which will be taking place in the parking lot outside the Coliseum there. I love this idea. I hope it works. I hope they get 40,000 people in the parking lot and 0 people in the stands. To really send a message. Can you imagine an empty ballpark on the most celebrated day in baseball? I think that would send the ultimate message. I don't know that would even do any good. It would be very symbolic, but it would be awesome. So I support whatever we can do here at Major League A-Holes to support those fan groups. We're 100% in. Of course, Rob Manfred had to chime in on the situation. And his response was, we have representation in the Bay Area of Major League Baseball. Why don't A's fans just become Giants fans?
I mean,
which is about as tone deaf as you can imagine. I don't think he said those exact words, but that's what he was implying with his statements. If the A's leave the Bay Area, they still have business there because they have the Giants, and fuck the fans essentially.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
become Giants fans. It's just laughable. But
I
it's
have
just another in a. Go ahead.
I have a win-win solution for this.
Okay.
Why
I like
don't
win-wins.
the A's just become a minor league affiliate to the Giants?
Yeah.
And then
Well, they have
their problems are solved.
I don't think that's quite what they're looking for. I'm not sure who that's a win for, but I like your thinking outside the box.
I'm totally thinking outside the box. The new minor league AAA affiliate for the Giants will be the Oakland A's, or wherever
as long as
they're
it's
going to
not
go.
the high A. Well, that kind of screws up my livelihood because I work for the Lansing Lugnuts, who is the high A affiliate of the A's. So if they became the AAA affiliate of the Giants, I'm not sure where that puts the Lugnuts. So
out of
and
business,
a
probably,
significant
dude.
portion
Sorry about
of
that.
my business.
Sorry.
Yeah. So watch your mouth over there. You're costing me money at this point.
Sorry, just trying to solve Oakland's problems.
Well, you sound much like Rob Manfred putting his foot in his mouth, as he's well known to do. Not only his comments about A's fans just becoming Giants fans. He also may have let it slip accidentally that he's retiring. That's usually a pretty big deal when a commissioner announces that he will be gone after his next tenure. It's actually slipped out over the last few weeks. There was no press conference. There was no press release announcing that he would be done after his tenure ends. His contract extension ends in 2028. He was asked a few weeks ago if expansion would be happening anytime soon, which is a hot topic. Lots of people talking about, of course, Nashville, potentially Portland, potentially even Montreal again. So it came up. His response at that point was that he didn't think it was going to happen during his tenure. And that just sort of slipped under the radar. It's like, well, that's interesting because then that could just mean it's going to take a long time because we've got to get the Oakland Stadium figured out. We've got to get Tampa's stadium figured out. And they need to get the next collective bargaining agreement, which we've barely entered into the current one. But 4 years from now, we're going to be having the same conversations and most likely a lockout once again. I don't think there's going to be any expansion before that new collective bargaining agreement happens. And all the regional sports networks who are in bankruptcy right now, after those situations need to get resolved before new ownership is going to step in for expansion teams. So that kind of got glossed over the way he talked about that, but got brought up again. A similar question got brought up again this past week when he was asked about the locations of future All-Star games, which are planned 4 and 5 years out in advance. He said that he didn't want to make decisions should be for the new commissioner to handle, which I believe all of the All-Star games are taken care of through 2028, which would be through the end of his tenure. And that led to the follow-up question. is your tenure ending after 2028? And he said, well, yeah, I guess it is. So it's almost like he accidentally told the world that he's quitting, which would be not out of character for how how bad his PR skills are, how he's let things slip out like the World Series trophy is just a hunk of metal
Yes.
and everything else. So it would not be out of character that he botched his own retirement announcement, that he just sort of let it slip out. So that is common knowledge now that his reign of terror will officially end after the 2028 season. My headline on this is Manfred out. Unfortunately, we have to wait another 5 years essentially for that to actually happen. So,
I'll be in there just long enough to get that White Sox stadium built.
well, yeah, that's what's interesting. So many things are happening around 2028. So yeah, we're looking deep into the future in this episode. So yeah, that's. I guess we'll be counting down the days for Rob Manfred's tenure to finally come to a close. Well, with that, I think we can bring this episode 141 to a close, unless you had any shit Pete forgot or anything I left off my outline here.
No, I kept you on track there, buddy.
All right, I'm exhausted after we went through these technical issues, trying to get on a new platform. I could barely hear you. I can't see you. Yeah, I can see you now, but we'll get this figured out for next week. Hopefully, it sounds good. I think we've got a better sounding podcast platform. Hopefully, this work was worth it. In the meantime, you can check us out, of course, on our new website found at majorleagueaholes.com and soxtypething.com. You can easily get to our social media channels from there, to our YouTube channel that's blowing up, get to all our Facebook, Instagram and Twitter platforms. You can find our shop at aesthetics.shop, ASSTHETICS. And you can find this podcast on all the platforms. You can find right there on MajorLeagueAholes.com and SoxTypeThing. So with that, I am going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Wordhole Media.